Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you are, but I just thought let me take some time and get to greet you and get to know how you're doing, and then I will, take a minute to look at the Quran, and I want to see what does the Quran say about the state of the former books, the earlier books, the Torah, the Injil, the Zabur, and the Injil, the Gospel. Now, it is the Muslim belief and Islamic belief. It's not Quranic. It is not found in the Sirah. It is not found in the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. But then most Muslims today kind of hold to the fact that the earlier books had been distorted, and therefore God brought the final revelation to his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so that to nullify the earlier books. But this is a very funny argument, because if you get to read the Quran, and I'm going to read a few verses, few chapters of the Quran, and just get to see what does really the Quran say. Does it say, as it is alleged, that the Torah or the Torah has been corrupted, that the Zabur or the Psalms have been corrupted? Now, maybe just a little background of why I'm saying this. In chapter 15 and verse 9, the Quran says that, and I will be reading chapter 15 and verse 9. I will read a few verses in chapter 5 and Surah Al-Yunus in chapter 10, and just get to see what the Quran says. But before that, just a little background into what I'm talking about. You see, according to Islam, you got to believe that God brought down revelation. And he brought the Torah or the Torah to and gave it. I don't know whether I just brought the wording anyway, but he gave the Torah to Moses, and he gave the Zabur or the Psalms to David, and he gave the Injil, a literal Injil, a gospel, to Jesus, and then finally he brought the Quran to Muhammad. Of course, there is a chapter 87 verse 19 that talks about Sufi wa Ibrahim al wa Musa, the books of Abraham. We don't know what kind of books they were, but then they such a belief. Now, as regarding to the former books, the Muslim belief is that these books have been distorted. But listen to what the Quran says, and I just want to open together with you, my friend. If you have your Quran, I have mine here, and I'm reading from the Yusuf Ali translation, and allow me to just open. I will begin with Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah 5, the chapter of the table, and verse 43. Surah Al-Ma'idah in verse 43. Allow me open it, and let's see what Allah is saying. All right, I'll begin from verse 43. It says, "But why do they come to you for a decision when they have their own law, the Torah, before them? And therein is the plain command of Allah. Yet even after that, they would turn away, for they are not really people of faith." Now, in this particular verse, the Quran is talking about the Jews who came to Muhammad in Medina, and they wanted him to judge in between them. And Allah is asking Muhammad, how can they come to you, whereas they have the Torah, they have the law, and it is with them. It is with them. So Allah is wondering, how can they make you a judge between them when they have the Torah? In other words, in 510, between 610, to 632, when the Prophet Muhammad died, there was the law within Yathrib, within Medina, in amongst the Jews, and therefore Allah is returning them and asking his prophet, how can they make you a judge in between them wherever they have the law? Now my question is, how can Allah demand that the Jews, how can he wonder why the Jews are not judging by the law if that law actually had been corrupted, if that book had been tampered with? And Allah did not just read in verse 47. Let me go on to verse 44 first. It says, it was we who revealed the law, the Torah, to Moses. Therein was guidance and light. But by its standards have been judged the Jews and the prophets who bowed to Allah's will by the rabbis. Now, in other words, the Quran is saying that, we, and speaking about what Muslims say as majestic plural, and so Allah is talking about we revealed the Torah, we gave it. In other words, Allah knows that He gave the Torah. So if you were telling me that people came and corrupted or distorted Allah's book, in other words, He is unable to keep His own book. And verse 47 of the same surah says, let the people of the gospel, Ahlul Injil, the people of the gospel, and this is talking about the Nasara, the Christians, the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed therein. If any do fail to judge by the light of what Allah has revealed in the gospel, they are no better than those who rebel. In other words, Allah is saying we will be rebels if we do not judge by the gospel. Now the question again comes back to us. How can Allah demand that we judge by a gospel that has been distorted? How can He demand that the Christians follow a book that He knows they have a book that has been distorted? And by the way, according to Surah 3, Surah Al-Imran and verse 55, Allah says, speaking to Isa, He says, and I will make those who follow thee, those who follow you, O Isa, O Jesus, I will make them to be on top. I'll make them rulers. In other words, they will be on top of those that are kuffars. In other words, in particular, let me just read the particular verse in Surah Al-Imran. Okay, it says, I got it. Okay, behold, and Allah said, O Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself and clear thee. And of course the word here is inam tawafika wa rafiuka ilayya. In other words, I will cause you to die and then bring you unto myself. But then it says, and I will make those who follow you superior to those who reject faith until the Yawm al-Qiyamah. In other words, them that follow Jesus will be superior upon the kuffars until the last day. But then look, let's get back to Surah 5 and continue what Allah is saying in verse 68. And again, I'll go to verse 68 together with you. This is what it says. O messenger, proclaim the message which he has been sent to thee from thy Lord. If you do that, you would have fulfilled and proclaimed his mission, and Allah will defend you from men of mischief, and Allah guides not those who reject faith. And then it says, say, O people of the book, Ahlul Kitab. And I do have a question for my Muslim friends. Tell us, who are these people, Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, the people of the scripture? The Quran is very clear. They are called the people of the book, Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book. It is a single book. But we know that Allah has revealed the Zabur, the Injil, the Gospel. But that is actually a book. So which book is this, other than the Bible, that actually contains a revelation that is among the Jews and among the Christians? So Allah is saying very well, O people of the book, in verse 68 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, you have no ground till you to stand upon, unless you stand fast by the law and the gospel. and the revelation that has come to you from your Lord. In other words, Allah is saying that we cannot have any other ground upon which to stand if we do not stand upon the ground of the law, the Torah, and the gospel, the Injil. In other words, the Injil was there in the days of Muhammad, and we know that Muhammad lived between 570 and he died in 632 AD. In other words, between that period, the gospel was there among the Christians in the days of Muhammad, and Allah is demanding that they stand upon the gospel and they stand upon the law, upon the Torah. It is not just that. In Surah 6, Surah Al-An'am, verse 115, I want to read it with you and just get to see what the Quran says. The Quran says, the word of your Lord has been fulfilled in truth and in justice. No one can change his words, for he is the one who hears and knows all. In other words, Allah is saying that his word would stand forever. And this reminds me what the gospel says in Isaiah chapter 42, where God says the heavens and the earth will pass away, everything else will wither away, but his word will stand forever. And Jesus says in the book of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17, he says, do not think that I came to nullify the gospel, the Torah and the prophets. I did not come to nullify them, but to fulfill them. And he says, heaven and earth will pass away, but not a single jot, not a single dot of those former books will pass away. All of it will be fulfilled. That is what God has fulfilled, what God has said. It is very funny when I speak to my Muslim friends, and they're very quick to point out to Surah 15, and let me read it together with you. Surah 15 and verse 9. This is a verse that every Muslim would point to, that Allah has promised that He will protect the Quran, He will guard the Quran. It says in Surah Al-Hijr, verse 9, allow me find it. It says, we have without doubt sent down the message, and that is in parentheses the Quran, and we will assuredly guard it from corruption. In other words, Allah is taking a vow and saying, we have brought down this Quran and we shall protect it. But my question is, if you believe that He failed in His responsibility to protect the Torah, He failed not only for the Torah, but He failed in protecting the books of Abraham according to Islam. I don't know what books of Abraham were, but the Quran alleges that Abraham had books, Sufi Ibrahim al Musa. He failed in protecting the Zabur. He failed in protecting the gospel. How can you entrust Him then to protect this Quran? It is something that is not possible. It does not really augur well with those of us who use our intellect to think. And therefore, I refuse the fact to say that the Quran, the Quran teaches that those books have been distorted. That cannot be true. Not only that, in Surah Al-Yunus, chapter 10 of the Quran, and I see my brother Hazim, Hamad, I see you, my brother, God bless you. I see my friend and my brother Dennis Mosetti, and my very close friend, Mr. Joash Nyagwachi, God bless you, I see you, and the many other friends that are watching together with me online right now. God bless you so much. Let me read Surah 10 and verse 94 and just get to hear what Allah is telling Muhammad. It's saying, if you are in doubt as what we have revealed unto you, ask those who have been reading the book from before you. The truth has indeed come to thee from your Lord, so be in no wise of those who doubt. In other words, Allah is saying, if you have any doubt, any shred of doubt concerning the Quran that we have revealed to you, ask those who are reading the book before you. In other words, Allah is saying, is actually sending Muhammad, son of Abdullah, to those who were reading the book before you. In other words, what Muslims are telling us is that Allah is sending his prophet to a people that have a book that has been distorted, to a people that have the Injil that has been distorted, the Injil that is no longer reliable. And then how can we even trust this Allah? Because he is saying, go ask those books. Go ask them, because they are reading the book. They are the Ahlul Kitab. They are the people of the book. And when Islam talks about Ahlul Kitab, he is talking about the Jews and the Christians. They are the people of the scripture. Go ask them. So in other words, he knows for sure that we do have a book, and that book has not been distorted. That is why, in my understanding, he is saying, go and ask them. And it's not just there. And he says, if you are in doubt, you say in chapter 2 and verse 2 of the Quran says, this is the book. That is the book. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That is the book. It has no doubt in it. And Muhammad is being told, go ask them. You know, and not only there, we read in chapter 16. Allow me to take you through chapter 16 of the Quran. This is the chapter of the bees. It says in, let me find verse 43 in particular. It says in verse 43, and before thee also we send messengers who are men, to whom we granted inspiration. If you realize this not, ask those who possess the message. Again, Allah is saying, ask those who possess the message. Ask them, because you might not know this. You know, these verses pose a great problem to those who try to say that the scriptures have been distorted. No wonder when you read the various translations, they try and twist these words. For instance, when you read chapter 10 and verse 94 that I just read, and you read it in Swahili, Sheikh Farsi has no otherwise but to put in brackets, wale ambao wamesilimu, those who have become Muslims. But if they have become Muslims, they are no longer Christians and they are no longer Jews. You see, that doesn't make sense when you say, ask those Jews and Christians who have become Muslims. Those are words that Sheikh Farsi, the translator of the Swahili Quran, has to put in parentheses, because he realizes that if indeed Allah is commanding his prophet to go and ask them, then they must be having a reliable source. You see, let me finish by Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah 21. And verse 7 and 8, and again see what the Quran is demanding of the Muslim to do. It says in Surah Al-Anbiya, the chapter of the prophets, in verse 7 and 8, it says, before you also were messengers who were sent but men, to whom we granted inspiration. If you realize this not, ask of those who possess the message. Again, the very wording that we find in Surah Al-Nahl, in Surah 16, is the very thing that is being repeated in Surah Al-Anbiya, and it's saying them, go and ask those who possess the message. Now, how Allah can ask we come to be asked if we do not have a reliable source? Then leaves us to wonder and to ponder on these things. What am I saying? Muhammad never at one point believed that the Torah had been distorted, that the Injil had been distorted. They might have distorted their interpretation of the former books, but that is a different thing altogether when we talk about distortion of the message than distorting the book, the manuscript itself. For instance, I will give you an example. Many times we find a place written, do not smoke. You know, maybe under the shade of something, you find a big inscription, do not smoke. But then you find somebody right there smoking. You know, in other words, he has made those words a lie. He has not really gone and nullified those wordings that are on that board. But what he has done denies the fact that is on that message. So that is the distortion in wording. It is not really a distortion of the words. And I will come and explain Surah Al-Baqarah in verse 79, because this is one verse that Muslims would always post and say, you see what the Quran says. But look at the very message of the Quran. It is very clear that if you believe that the former books have been distorted, then you cannot, with all honesty, hold to the fact that the Quran is pure from corruption. He has been kept from the from corruption of men. These are facts that you cannot deny. These are facts from within the Quran and from even within the hadiths, and I would love to come and see what the hadiths and the seerah say about all these aspects. But I can say for sure the Quran, in the verses that we have read, and I have read from Surah 16 and verse 43, I've read from Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah chapter 21 and verse 7, I have read from Surah 6 and verse 115, I have read from chapter 10 and verse 94, I have read quite a number, Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5 and verse 43 all the way to verse 47, 48. Nowhere does the Quran actually hold to the fact that the former books have been distorted. And if indeed you hold on to that, and then you make us, ask ourselves so many other questions that demand an answers that Islam cannot provide for. So when you read these things, and I see my brother Samsudin and many others who are watching together with me, receive my greetings, and thank you for the posts and for the challenges that my Muslim friends are posting and making me study more into these things. But I won't say one thing as I finish, that the Quran is very clear on these things. It's very clear that we cannot believe that those former books have been distorted, yet hold to the fact that the Quran is pure and that it is the way it was during the days of Muhammad or something like that. We will come and explore that topic in further. But today I just wanted to see what the Quran talks about, the Injil, the Zabur, and even the books of Moses and all these things. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless you. See you. Have a nice evening. God bless you.